Hello, I'm Andrew Thomas Price. Welcome to the Bushcraft and Survival Skills series. In this episode, I'll be looking at the versatility of a general purpose axe. The first thing I want to show you is how to fell a tree using an axe. We need to decide which direction we want it to go in. Now, I've checked the area around here and it looks as though the safest direction is straight down here. So that means I need to drop this tree into this fairly narrow gap. If all goes well, I'll have some timber to take back to camp to work with. Now, the first thing I need to think about is clearing the area around the base of the tree. So I want to get rid of all these suckers here, any brambles that I might get snagged in. And also I'm going to scrape off as much of this moss as I can as well, so I can see exactly what I've got to work with here. That all looks nice and clear, so I need to skip around the other side of the tree and we can start felling. The first thing I need to do is to make a 45-degree angled cut into the tree at about this point here. So I'll get myself into a good position. And always, when you're using an axe, always think about the follow through. Now, if I were to miss this by accident, I want to make sure that the head of this axe is going to go into the ground harmlessly and not into my leg. So that's really important. Whenever you're using an axe, you're always thinking, what's the worst case scenario? And if you do that, you'll never have any problems. So I'm going to start making my cut about here, and I'm looking at a 45-degree angle. So I'm making another cut now just to clear this mouth here so it has a good area to fall into. I think we can stop this side. I've created the mouth, there's a good notch there. It should fall straight down there and then we should be good to go. So what I need to do now is release the tree by making another cut slightly higher about here. And if I've done it right, it should fall exactly where I want it to go. So let's see how we're getting on. Here we go. Now I've got the tree to the point where it's almost through at the base, but it's hung itself up on another tree. Now this isn't too much of a problem. I can see it's only just about caught on one small branch. So plan B, I'm going to cut again. The shock will allow it to roll out of position. So we'll try this now. Let's give it a go. Timber! The axe made short work of that, so another use for an axe is what we call limbing. So that's removing the branches. In order to remove these, what we don't want to do is come down into the gap there because it will get bound up. It's very, very difficult. So what we do is stay on the opposite side of the main trunk of the tree, and we're going to work in an upward motion, removing limbs like that. If you think ahead, always plan where that cut will go, you'll never have any problems. So here we go. Got a Y-shaped section here, so I'm going to remove that in exactly the same way. Yet again, cutting in such a way that if I do slip, it'll go into this clear area. So that is the felling and the limbing out of the way. Now I can cut this up into manageable pieces which I can transport back to camp, and then I'll show you how to use the axe for splitting and carving. Well, I'm back at camp now and I've just brought this piece of the tree that I felled, so it's a good idea if you have a saw to use the saw to cut things up. It's much easier to split because it'll sit nice and flat. But before we do that, I'm just going to talk about the axe itself and the parts of the axe. So first of all, we have the axe cover. Now this is heavy-duty leather. It protects you against the blade of the axe. Whenever you're not actually using the axe at any particular time, this should be in position on it. Now to look at the axe, you could break it into two separate parts. So we have the head and the haft. So the head of the axe is the steel part, the haft is the wooden bit. At the top here, we have the eye, so this is the hole that the haft comes through. At the back, we have the butt of the pole. This is the bit, so the cutting edge is the bit, and we have the toe of the bit up here and the heel of the bit down here. The sides of the axe here are the cheeks, and then we have the belly of the axe here and the throat of the axe here. It has a fairly short handle, so it's easy to put into a pack. It has quite a light head, means it's not too much to carry. If we look at it like this, you can see that it is quite a shallow profile, so it works very, very well for carving, but it also has enough of a wedge shape to allow it to cleave wood and split wood effectively for the campfire. And without further ado, I'll show you how we use it for splitting wood safely. I work down onto a stump or a log like this, which gives me a very stable surface to work on, and I also put the piece of wood that I'm planning to split at the far end away from me. If I do miss, it's going to go straight down into the stump, no problems at all. Because this has a very short handle, I need to lower my profile to make it safe to use. So by doing it like this, squatting down or kneeling down, it's much, much safer. It's almost impossible for me to hit myself in this position. So I'm going to bring the head of the axe straight down and hit about there. Now as it gets smaller, it gets a little bit more tricky, because when we're working pieces like this, once it gets too small, it's very hard to allow it to stay up on its own. So what I like to do is take a piece of wood, you can take another piece of firewood, and just hold it steady while you use one hand, just deliver very fine chopping blows using one hand. Because this is all small diameter wood, it doesn't take an awful lot of force to split it, and we can split the wood down into very, very small pieces. And there we have our kindling. So when you're getting a fire going, you need to work through multiple stages. So we can start off with very, very small pieces, tinder and very, very small primary kindling, and we can work our way up until we can burn sticks like this, and then eventually we can be burning half logs like this, which will burn more slowly and more efficiently for heating your wood burner or for use on the campfires. Now we can also use the axe as a carving tool. So instead of the motion that you use for splitting or cleaving wood, we now use a much more controlled method where we hold the axe on the haft much closer to the head, which gives us a lot more control. Now I'm going to demonstrate making a rough spoon blank, the sort of task that you might use this for in camp. Now to begin with, we select a piece of wood. So what we need to do is keep our fingers and our thumb out of the way. Now when I'm using it, I'm going to start removing material down here. Now you notice that I'm using fairly short chops, and I'm not bringing the head above my hand. So I'm just taking controlled short chops like this. If I find that it's getting tiring and I need a little bit more force, I can move my hand further down. Gives me a little bit more leverage. I may find if I want to do fine detailed work, I'm coming right up, getting right close to the head, right on top of the head in some cases. And I'm using the axe in this way. And because the head never comes up higher than the hand that's holding the wood, there's almost no danger of hitting that hand. Well, that concludes this episode of how to use an axe for felling, splitting and carving. And if you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe the Bushcraft and Survival Skills channel, and we'll see you next time.